Okay. Um, Welcome to uh, Wirecast Wednesday for 20 May 2020. Wow, that's a fun number. I've been in a slightly different location this time. As you can see, my background is completely boring and white. I'm one of those terrible spaces for actually doing video conference and live connections. But oh, my audio is really low. Okay, let's push that up just a tad, shall we? We're picking up more? I don't know. Are we? Are we? We're sending. We're sending okay. We're sending okay. Ah, so again, it is Wirecast Wednesday, and I am coming to you live from my home. I've been social distancing for 8 weeks now. My last day at work was March 16, which feels like a really long time ago in so many ways. Had so many work explosions, just like horrible things happening at work. But this isn't about work. This is about my life. Before I get into the main topic of my discussion, I wanted to just quickly say that I had a little win a couple of weeks ago. A a reader of, and let me just get it real quickly. Uh, uh, so, oh, let's switch the earbuds around. A reader of my number 7 book liked it so much that they purchased a bunch of copies to sell at their store. So shout out to Mido in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for that. It was such a surprise, and what a nice ego boost too. So they offered to do an author meet and greet when this is all over, of course. And I would be ecstatic to do that. I don't know what I'm going to be like in front of that kind of an audience, assuming there is any kind of audience. Maybe I'll just have okonomiyaki while I, sit there and one or two people might ask me about my story. That would be fine too. I'd be totally happy with that. But because I had this little windfall, I decided that I wanted to kind of spread the writer love around. And um, coming up next week, my good friend and colleague, I hope I can say friend and colleague, Kate Johnston, and here's her website, katejohnstonauthor.com. I want to sponsor a couple of free critiques. So Kate has this great deal that through June 15, she is offering for $25. You can have a 30-minute one-on-one critique call with her, either by Zoom or by phone. And Kate gives fantastic advice. If you are a writer, an aspiring writer, a published writer, a known writer, an unknown writer, and you are looking for someone who is a thoughtful and insightful and compassionate critique giver, Kate is. I cannot recommend her highly enough. So she has this opportunity in the services on her website. And as I said, for $25, you can have this 30-minute one-on-one call based on a piece of writing that you submit to her. There are a couple of other little caveats there in terms of length and whatnot, but it's such a valuable experience that I wanted to sponsor 3. So look for a couple of announcements coming next week about an opportunity to win one of 3 of these critique sessions. So I'm really excited about that, and I hope you are too. I look forward to, finding out who wins. All the details will be forthcoming, though, and I don't want to steal any of her thunder because she is such a fantastic colleague and mentor in many ways, and a great editor. I've used her services. She's fantastic. So if you are interested, check out her website. Check out her. I think she's also going to be announcing on her Instagram, and she's also on Facebook. She runs a page called Team Writer. So if you just look for Team Writer, it's a closed group, but You just need to apply for it. That's all. Anyway, that's like kind of semi-exciting news. But as we move on to the bonus parts A to Z, and for those of you who don't know, the bonus parts A to Z is just a series that I'm doing where I go through the alphabet and I pick a letter to talk about a topic that starts with the letter. And this week we are up to J. And for J, I want to talk about jargon. So a lot of us are already familiar with jargon, and jargon is a specialized language, or it's actually a language, but it's like a subset of words, terms that are very specialized, usually to a job, or something that people do. So in writing, we have jargon. There's like betas and whips, which are works in progress. There's concrete, which is constructive criticism. A lot of it is just kind of like shortened forms of things or acronyms for phrases. The tricky thing about jargon, and jargon can bring a lot to a characterization. In the real world, jargon is kind of like a faster way of communicating within a specialized batch of knowledge. Like if I say, I work at, part of my job is managing the HFC, distribution network. We have a 550 megahertz RF network that is also, modulated for 256 QAM. Not everybody knows what I'm talking about, and then I have to like kind of work out in layman's terms, what that means. But the people who are familiar with those terms, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And while some jargon has made it into the general public vernacular, tech. Let's take a tech example. So like most people know what Wi-Fi is. It's wireless fiber. We don't call it that anymore. We just call it Wi-Fi, and it kind of refers to something different than what it originally referred to. Or USB, which I think is Universal Serial Bus. If I said Universal Serial Bus to my mom, she would have no idea what I'm talking about. But if I say USB, she knows. So jargon has a way to make it into the, like I said, the general public vernacular. In terms of like when you're writing, though, jargon can fulfill some different opportunities. A lot of them are opportunities for characterization. If you read a police procedural story, for example, we'll talk about put out an APB, or which is an all points bulletin. Usually they won't come out and say all points bulletin. It tends to be not the way that police talk, or that police talk in fiction anyway. And the jargon that you incorporate into your writing can create this sense of, or this feeling for the reader that the character really knows what they're very familiar with, the area in which they are speaking or writing or thinking. They really know their stuff. They could be a know-it-all. In some respects, using a lot of jargon is a kind of dig at people who aren't in the know. Some folks kind of revert to jargon to lord it over other people a little bit, because not everybody does understand what's what the meaning is of a lot of jargon. So it's a tricky, it can be a tricky balancing act to have a characterization and have a character who uses jargon, and you want to present a character who knows what they're talking about, who is good at their job or spent a long time at their job, so they just have developed this jargon and they use it a lot. The problem, or the challenge, comes in when characters use too much jargon, and it kind of like messes up the flow of a story, because the reader is sitting there scratching their heads half the time. An example that comes to mind is Tom Clancy. And I really liked a lot of Tom Clancy books. I read him um, pretty steadily through my college years, and I really liked the way that he wrote stories. But there can be a lot of jargon in there, and a lot of times as a reader, I would just sort of gloss over it, or I'd have to struggle through it. And when that happens, you lose the reader. When the reader is lost for a second, like, that's not a great thing to happen in a story. So I do recommend keeping the jargon, kind of minimalizing it if you can, unless you're going for a character who separates themselves from the rest of society, or like the other people around them, by using a lot of very specific jargon, because it can be kind of off-putting, to be honest. And I'm definitely guilty of using jargon a lot. I've had to go back and look at things that I've written and say, oh, that's a lot of like really over the top, technical, or sci-fi babble that I threw in there just to show off how much I had done research on the subject, how much I knew, and that kind of hubris is very dangerous as a writer, especially to a reader. As a reader, I have to remember that is very off-putting a lot of times. So yes, I would caution against using too much jargon. Some jargon is fine, and some jargon is really fun to use, depending on your characterization. But be careful that you're not using it to show off yourself. If it's there for the character to show off, that's fine. But no reader likes an author kind of looking down their nose at them. And I had to learn that the hard way and do a lot of rewriting because of it. So save yourself the effort of a lot of rewrites and a lot of revision, and don't look down on your readers that way. So that's pretty much it. I'm trying to keep these kind of short because no one really likes listening or watching someone just talk to a camera for 15 minutes or more. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that you keep an eye out for Kate Johnston's prompts for this critique offer contest coming up next week. And stay safe. I know that things are opening up. It doesn't mean that we can just start rushing out and French kissing people on the street. Try to avoid that if you can. Try to avoid that anyway. But yeah, do be cognizant, be careful, be well, and I will see you again soon, hopefully.